we're going to go in to the best of 3 category. The round of 32 is coming your way to your monitors, phones, refrigerators, wherever you happen to watch EGC TV. Starflark and Gullyd3ck3l is going to be the next one on the screen. I know both of these guys. I love both of these guys. And I wish there was an opportunity for both of them to progress, but only one will remain in this best of 3. We're starting out on Cliffside, Wayman.
With the best of ones being over, we finally get to the point where cheesing is not as effective. Now, I say this, and I'm looking at the bracket at the moment. Myriad against Matisse, pretty, I would say, evenly matched team there. But at the same time, at the bottom of the bracket, we also have Numedan and MSN facing off. And I feel like Numedan, pretty solid player. I know he's been practicing with a few of the top boys. And MSN, he's just a man full of surprises. Now, back to our game, Starflark and Gully. I feel like we saw out of Gullyd3ck3l, in the previous tournament, we saw that Gully, he does have some tricks up his sleeve. But Starflark, not a name we see too much. Now, I don't know if Starflark is going to be able to take down Mr. Gully here in a best of 3, and especially when we look at the civs that made it through. We see French again. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I see French, I quiver in my boots, knowing that they could be everywhere. But keeping in mind, Starflark went for, he got French, he got Rus here, and he's still, French and Rus, and then we also have Abbasid and China being picked this one. We know China has been in a pretty good spot as well, especially when you get to these high levels. They just have a response to anything. They can make sure that they have that pressure and feudal. They have the ability to just delay the game. But on Cliffside, you do have quite a lot of control just based on where you put your Barbican. I feel like China gets to dictate the pace of the game. But against a civilization like Byzantines, it's always hard to do, right? Because Byzantines, they decide what goes for what after they decide on those contracts. Now, that's the great thing about Byzantines. We know what the favorite is. Most people go for longbows. But when you have a situation where your opponent is playing, Civ that needs to expand, do you go for something else that you try and close this out? Do you try to make this go into late game, knowing that Song Dynasty is there where they get those extra villages? I don't know what the answer is against China, but I'm hoping Twitch chat does, because Tim, I don't think you know either.
Well, it's kind of tough to go up against the late game China with their granaries and all of that kind of stuff. And China's been a little bit of a dark horse in the meta right now. I think there weren't a lot of people talking about it, but there's one very pivotal technology and one very pivotal strategy in Feudal Age that has reared its ugly head throughout most civilization play, and that is professional scouts. And China, when it comes to professional scouts, they really like it. And you might think, why? It's because you could save that food economy until you get to the granaries. And let's see if that's what Starflark chooses to do. We're heading in to this series game number 1. Yeah, perfect. That timing was perfect. Starflark going as the Chinese in the color blue, spawning in the northwestern side of the map. Gullyd3ck3l will be his opponent for this best of 3, playing as the Byzantines in the color yellow, doing very typical Byzantine stuff, getting a little wet with that cistern, and we'll be building a house as well. So you're absolutely right, Wayman, from what we alluded to before this game started. It's very interesting to see what you choose to do in terms of contracts for the mercenary house and the mercenary contract. So is there an opportunity for something like Keshik for a gulp strategy? Is there an opportunity for something like Longbowmen and to do a lot of feudal pressure? Because Longbowmen end up having a notoriously good win rate and expected value against the Chinese. So we're going to see what Gullyd3ck3l chooses to do. Chinese on the other side, the reason why professional scouts is as good as it is because once you get to this like late feudal, early castle area as Chinese, that quote unquote safe food ends up going away. So having professional scouts and having a couple deer packs right next to your mill and getting supervised is so huge for China. And it feels like that's the hole that they needed in their economy, and they can just transition very quickly.
And the problem is you don't really have a response to what China is going to do, right? Because China, they can just supervise that upgrade. They can make sure they get it at the speed of light. And by the time you get there, most of the deer are already taken care of. You could yoink one or two, but when you're Byzantines, do you really have that ability to? Right now, scouts are so fast, even though they are carrying a carcass on their back. So I don't know if you actually have a pretty good answer against all of these deer that will be floating right towards that supervised mill of Starflark in the late game. Now, considering we're getting a normal grand winery opening, this is going to be let the oil flow and do the talking. Because with China, you can't even punish them if you even go for that hippodrome. Because they are just under their TC. Their TC shoots extra hard. And we see Imperial Academy coming down pretty standard here, getting that Imperial official from the Imperial Academy instead of the TC, so you can stay ahead with those vills.
Yeah, you talked about the hippodrome a little bit, and from Byzantine aficionados like you and I both are, the winery is just so good. I'm not saying the hippodrome is a bad landmark, but the winery is so good in giving you an extra batch of mercenary units for essentially free because of that oil that you're getting. It's very difficult to not pick that landmark. I see people that go hippodrome, and then even getting olive groves around that winery, it boosts you for the entire game. And those are some of the best feudal age landmarks, ones that continue to provide you bonuses throughout the game. So things like an Aachen Chapel, right? Grand Winery is no different, getting those olive groves around. The hippodrome, yeah, it gives you that little bit of a triumph, but especially because Byzantines don't have that feudal age horse unit that's so powerful, like an early knight, the triumph just seems a little bit lackluster to me.
Especially, no, I know a lot of you guys have seen gulping on ladder. No, hopefully we do not see that today. Although I think when you gulp into China, you might be able to stop that very, very late game we talked about. Now, hopefully Gullyd3ck3l knows what he's doing, because this is going to be scary for anyone taking this on. And the thing about the winery is ensuring that you are able to get those upgrades pretty early on as well. I say this, but Gully has not queued up any of these upgrades just yet. He goes and opens with a barracks instead, using that wood on the barracks instead of the initial upgrades that people usually get. Now, he does queue up wheelbarrow as expected here. Hopefully we get a double broad axe there too, and then the plays will start flowing. Now, with the spearman that we get this early on, he's going to try to probably stop that professional scouts going on. We can see that Imperial official supervising that mill, and the upgrade coming in at the speed of light.
Yeah, and before, actually, just as you finish this sentence, professional scouts has been completed. So you have the ability to get those deer, and you got to figure out which deer pack you want to go for. And actually, as far as the deer goes, it's pretty advantageous in Gullyd3ck3l's spot, because he has that back deer pack, which you're going to have to do some microing to go around to make sure you don't get hit by the town center. And a lot of these deer packs for Starflark are forward, so that professional scouts is going to end up being very good for him, and he'll be able to get some of that safe food. He's got a stable that's going to be cranking out some scouts as well. And I see a lot of people in chat talking about that grand winery and the cistern placement, the building placement, stuff like that. And I could definitely see it. As you can see, you spend a lot of gold on those aqueduct, or stone, I should say, on those aqueducts, just because of it's not going in that perfect square. Obviously, that cistern going in the realm of that grand winery. But maybe he's not thinking about doing olive groves at all. Maybe he wants to get a little dangerous with it and try to get this game to end in feudal age. And I think that's an opportunity that the Byzantines have over the Chinese, because when it comes to feudal age, Byzantines and their tempo push that they get with oil, it's really like no other. So maybe he has the opportunity to do it. He goes for the Silk Road contract, I believe, and goes for javelin throwers, or is it the Eastern contract? I don't remember. Regardless, he's going to go for some javelin throwers because he probably expects some archers, maybe expects some Zugnu as well. Limitine are trying to get in there. Regular archers from the Chinese are going to try to take down some of those Limitine, but the javelin throwers will help to try to make sure whatever archers that are there end up getting repelled.
The problem is now you're not a Barbican Chinese. You don't have the Barbican out there to protect your resources except for food. Yes, your deer are going to come to the base and they're going to be in a very happy state, but Are you? Ooh, look at those olive groves. Tim, we spoke too soon. The man
Yeah.
is groving. He wants to get more oil because more oil, more units, baby. So now Starflark can make that decision and get that Barbican somewhere to make sure that he does get that China power of the later game, getting the Jugunu ability as well. Because when you're playing against Byzantines with javelin throwers, you probably want a few Jugunu instead of getting archers in this case. Now, with the amount of limited nay we're seeing here, I wonder if he's going to double down and get more, but look at those javelin throwers. He's getting more limited A. He knows that the horses are in the vicinity. More horsemen being queued up here from Mr. Starflark and getting that wheelbarrow for himself as well. We just see him being that much further away from Song Dynasty. And Song Dynasty is such an important upgrade for China because it just upgrade. It's such an important stage of the game for China because they just get that extra little bit of villager production speed on the TCs. But at this point, you know, I gotta just keep producing. I gotta push Byzantines back into the base because the moment I give Byzantines the tempo, things get very hairy.
And, you know, this is kind of frustrating as Starflark's trying to take a little bit of a fight here, trying to get around those Limited. Looks like Limited do have the shield wall there, but Starflark kind of has an idea of what to expect. He saw the Limited, he saw the javelin throwers, and there really just isn't enough javelin throwers to one-tap these archers. So you get 1 or 2 horsemen, all of a sudden these javelin throwers end up going down. One might end up remaining alive. Some villagers go down as well, just one of them. And I think this is really curbing that Byzantine tempo that you're looking for. You know, with these javelin throwers, they're supposed to give you that tempo. Not so much because of the fact that he made those horsemen. Obviously, with the professional scouts, he's able to get a decent amount of horsemen. He could even supervise that stable if he wanted to because of his food economy. But it's so frustrating, back to my original point, Wayman, because it seems like Gullyd3ck3l did just about what he could to stop professional scouts from happening, right? He started to make some Limited A. He started to go into those deer packs that were supposed to be relatively safe for Starflark, and they obviously were because of how many deer he ended up getting. And even though professional scouts is an expensive technology, you put 2 deer by your mill, and technically it's paid off in terms of resources. So able to get those multiple deer packs. He's got about 1.5 right now. This is an obvious win for Starflark, and you can see the difference in food economy as Starflark's got about 800 to Gullyd3ck3l's 370.
Starting to get military upgrades. I say starting, but he's already got one in there. And Gullyd3ck3l as well, but when you have this amount of units here from Mr. Starflark, it is a little bit different. It does hit very differently. With javelin throwers, you want to make sure you have quite a large amount to be able to contest this, and they are here in the vicinity. Villagers trying to get every little bit they can. Horsemen in a little bit of a compromising position now, but these javelin throwers are still scary. When you have this huge amount of archers and they're not clumped up, these javelin throwers are going to pick them off so easily. And this is a pretty good pickup here from Gully. And Barbican is now placed down as well. So the Vil kill that he got will now just extend more and more with this being a little bit faster villager production here from Mr. China. Now, Limited chasing these archers. They are kiting pretty well as well. So we'll see if any more go down, but the javelin throwers are in position. Now, we do see the red popping up there from the base. Wondering if there is a little fight happening there too, because the army is still in favor of Mr. Starflark. He is just absolutely everywhere. And the villagers also joined the party there at the front. Wonder what they were thinking about doing.
I think it kind of looked like a little bit of a forward Barbican almost. If you put it right on those olive groves, I don't know how many villagers he sent over there, but he definitely would have had the option to. He can go Song Dynasty if he chooses to now to put the Barbican wherever he would like to. It ends up going a little bit safer where that gold is, because that's pretty much the only resource at this point that is somewhat rateable for Starflark. Obviously, with the professional scouts, it means going right next to that town center, you don't have the opportunity to raid it, which is quite frustrating. But also that wood line is relatively close, and those hand cannon slits out of the Chinese town center will be helpful. Now, we're looking at military count, and this is an opportunity where obviously the Byzantines should have a little bit more because of their ability to get the olive groves. But Gullyd3ck3l was hoarding his resources just a little bit. He's like, hey, I can't really win this fight in feudal, or at least I don't think I can. So I'm going to get the Golden Horn Tower right next to the cistern, get some of those mercenary units and pump them out for free, and maybe try to do something with that barracks, add some Varangian guards, something like that instead. Because going against archers and horsemen, I think you're going to need a little bit more armor if you're going to do this, and especially if you're going to take down a ram attack that Starflark is going for.
Problem is when you're Gullyd now, you have to decide what am I going to upgrade. I only have a limited amount of resources here. The food is not flowing. The wood is a little bit scarce at the moment too. So Gullyd, he is going to get his Golden Horn Tower, but with the amount of units we see here from Starflark, this is going to be so hard to handle, and more getting picked off. The ram is pulled back though, and I think the moment Gullyd notices the age up, he should be pushing forward, because I'm going to have the units to actually push this. I say this as the astronomical clock tower is going to go down, and Starflark says, I don't really care about ending it right now. I don't need to. I could probably get a little bit of damage done, but he doesn't need to. He's just sitting back, enjoying his time. Villagers are pulled off of gold because the horses have arrived, and they're snacking on that back one. The back one, begging for his life right now, does make it out. The begging worked.
Yeah, I think when it came to that ram and that kind of feudal age kind of push, you think that because your opponent goes for castle age that you have a little bit of a tempo swing because it's 1,800 resources they didn't make units out of, right? But the thing is with Byzantines, if you have all of your production buildings in your mercenary house by the cistern, you switch that cistern to Dialecticus, and then you can get those castle age technologies, assuming you have the resources, you can get them in about 20 seconds. And that's kind of what Gullyd3ck3l ended up doing. You know, his javelin throwers are now veteran. His spearmen are just about to hit the veteran variety, and it looks like they will right now. And then Varangian Guard are obviously coming in to Castle Age. Starflark does have a decent amount of defensive forces. He has some Zugnu. He has some normal archers as well that are left over, and continuing to add some crossbowmen to try to deal with those Varangian Guard, and that could prove to be beneficial. But now we're seeing, as Starflark ends up repelling this very easily, we're seeing the difference between somebody who got professional scouts and somebody who had to make olive groves. And obviously we could tell who got the pro scouts now, can't we?
It's not just the pro scouts that he got. Gullyd felt pressured in that moment. Just like we mentioned, hey, Starflark now has the ability because Gullyd just aged up. Gullyd had that same pressure. He got the upgrades pretty quickly, and he's like, oh, I got this. He's going to need some time to get those upgrades. But he felt too pressured, and he overextended, thinking that he needed to do some damage as quickly as he lost those units. Now, he does have a few Varangian guards, but with the crossbows joining the party here from Mr. Starflark, this is going to be really tough. And now Lancers are going to join this fight as well. Now, the horsemen are getting their eyes set on these villages. There is a little tower to persuade them to look elsewhere, but that tower is made of very, very soft resources, and that ram is going to make it crumble. It is not the Mangonel Tower we fear and love, and that tower is going to end itself pretty quickly. Already on fire, and this is going to be very exposed. And this is the problem with forward food, right? Now, he does push this back because the Varangian gods do pretty well against the archer mass that he had here, but for how long? The villagers now getting their flames out to try and stop this ram. He does get a farm in the process, and Gullyd holds off, but at the cost of a lot of idle time.
Yeah, and you know, I think Starflark, that firepower out of the Zugnu really wasn't there. We kind of thought, I think some people in chat kind of thought that this was a little bit of a game-ending push for Starflark because he had the food in order to do it, and he still does. He's at about 1,300 food per minute. However, a lot of those were Zugnu and not crossbowmen, so those Varangian Guard were able to hold and stay put. He has both iron undermesh and wedged rivets. His rivets happened to be wedged, so those Zugnu weren't really doing too much, right? So these palace guards are trying to make up the front line. Javelin throwers are going to be able to take down a lot of these Zugnu that's there. And now that he has some crossbowmen on the back end, and you can kind of see them all the way in the back, some Varangian Guard end up going down. Palace Guard ended up making a little bit of a soft meat cushion, but as long as he's getting that defender's advantage with those Palace Guards and bolstering up those reinforcements, he might be able to try to take down those Varangian Guard. But really good play by Gullyd3ck3l, because I think he was actually targeting the crossbowmen. So it made sure those Varangian Guards stayed alive. Starflark ran out of deer. There are a couple over there, but he went over to the mill to get some berries. Those villagers end up being compromised, and Starflark starting to add a little bit of Lancer into his play as well. So this is something that Gullyd3ck3l isn't going to be able to bolster in terms of defensive advantage as well as Starflark is, so it might end up making him back up over the long term, and it looks like he should do that about now.
And Gullyd actually did the maximum amount of damage he could here. He tried to target fire a few villages here as well. Very, very well played here. He's gotten some camels to also deal with that Lancer power spike just by causing a little bit of unease as they charge into the army. But now that is, again, 2 more sets of javelin throwers being queued up. So he believes in these javelins, and he's doing an amazing job at target firing. Now, with the amount of javelins, this is going to start getting harder and harder the longer the game goes, and he does get that special Limit upgrade. But now he's looking at pushing even more. With the army not being completely together here from Starflark, this is not a fight he wants to take. And those Limit are doing amazing at keeping those Lancers at bay. They are not getting on top of those javelins.
Yeah, it's kind of nice because as you see some of those camel riders come in, they're very nice camel riders, and even though I hardly know her, they're going to be able to get some of the camel unease on a lot of those horse units as Starflark gets a little bit of a flank on the eastern side, because you want to get horsemen, you want to get lancers to try to take down these javelin throwers because they are decimating your ranged mass in the back. But because maybe it was Golden Horn or otherwise that added a couple camel riders in there, it was enough to try to take them down. Gullyd3ck3l's doing his best to kind of hang out in here. He has some Limit to do good damage against these knights, do good damage against these horsemen. We're kind of seeing a little bit of a stalemate. Starflark's defender's advantage is what's coming up clutch, though, for most of these battles.
Some play behind this now, as Starflark is going to try pick up that 1 relic. And Gullyd, he's been on 2 for a while. He's decided that was it. I am not going to commit too much more to this. But now the question is, I was about to say, are we going to get some mangonel towers? And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, is yes. Yes, we will. This is Byzantines. If you do not get a mangonel emplacement, what are you even doing with your civilization? Now, China does pretty well with these, considering they could make some things, some siege out of their siege production building with extra spicy powers, but no, he decides to hold off and just keep making normal units. Now, we've been seeing that mangonels, they're doing pretty okay, but Nest of Bees, those bad boys, they do well, especially when you're playing against an opponent here that does have a lot of units on land and not a lot of mobility. We see 2 camels now being queued up as well, so yes, the camels are going to come on in, but that's about as mobile as you get. So I'm really surprised to see Starflark not deciding on a little bit of Nest of Bees play here, because now Gullyd is expanding himself over the map and getting a little bit of a control here. We see the Limit actually scouting out these relics being picked up, and that should remind Gullyd, hey, there are relics on this map, I should probably make a play for another one.
So honestly, this is a very pivotal moment as we see wait a minute. Okay. We see a very pivotal moment in this part of the game as that battle takes front. Starflark kind of needs to take this fight because the deer are starting to run out. We talk about professional scouts over and over again, but the deer are starting to run out. He does have an IO supervising that mill, but I don't see any carcasses out there, okay? That means that he's going to have some sort of granary transition, and that means a massive tempo loss. You can see that military. Look at all these granaries up here. Those berries, there's no pomegranates to pick, my friend. You're going to have to go out there and start to make a lot of farms with that granary, and you're making all those farms. That means you're going into wood, and if you're going into all that wood, that means that food-heavy army composition that you're making, palace guards, crossbowmen, lancers, you're not going to be able to make it. There's 1 berry patch up there on the north. He's got 5 or 6 villagers in, but you're going to see that food economy start to go down from Starflark unless he makes that granary transition. Whereas Gullyd3ck3l, he's got those groves already. He's going to be able to get all of that oil. He's lathered himself up, women. He's greasy as well. Get out. And he's going to be able to get a lot of these units for free while Starflark needs to make that transition. So Gullyd3ck3l, if he's going to try to win this game, it's going to be right now.
The problem with the professional scouts is I feel like it gives people too much confidence. And if you can survive that initial push, you've really outlasted your opponent because they're going to need to food transition. And I think this is exactly where things go wrong. It's a pretty new strategy as far as things are considered because we just haven't seen it for that long. It hasn't been this strong, but now this is scary. The farms are going to be idle. There's nothing coming out of this army for a while. because there's a lot of units here at the back of your base. Although I feel like this is a good enough army here from Mr. Starflark to keep this up, considering Gullyd's army is not all together. But those units are perfectly target firing. The Lance is a little bit confused about what their role is here. They get on top of them. They slice and dice a few of them. The Jugenu trying their best, but these Jugenu just don't hit the same way they did earlier. Those javelin throwers perfectly target firing. And Gully couldn't pick up a W in the last 10K tournament, but he's showing he's here to fight. He is taking care of most of these units and a lot of the front units as well, as we see that villager defeated count going up and up and up from Mr. Gullyd3ck3l. Definitely doing some damage.
And that's the thing. I mean, you talked about Gullyd3ck3l. His army wasn't consolidated, right? He had different places. He had 2 different places that he was going. And that back army is a very pivotal problem for Byzantines and for a civ like English too, because the mobility isn't there, right? You get them in harm's way, you get them all the way in the back of the base, they end up getting cleaned up, and Starflark did a good job of that. However, on the front side, villagers obviously ended up raided. That wood line was very exposed, 19 worker kills, and because Song Dynasty gives you that extra villager production speed, it's 15 seconds instead of 20, all of those villagers that he took down ended up evening the count for the Byzantines. But the thing of it is, Gullyd3ck3l, it's notoriously wet back there in the Byzantine Empire. He's got Cistern level 3 and can't go to level 4 if he has the presence of mind to do so. So because of that, and having his groves already there, you can see he's sitting on 1,500 food per minute. Starflark's at about 500 because he's getting consistently raided. Don't get me wrong, that second granary and those farms, they're starting to come together, which is very nice. But they're not getting picked. That wheat is not getting picked by those Chinese villagers. So we're watching that food count go down. Gullyd3ck3l can continuously reproduce, and he's going to be able to with the military count 56 to 25. Gullyd3ck3l just has to make up enough army and just get up there and A-move, baby.
And we know how scary a Byzantine's push can be. When you have farms in the back line, just imagine how beautifully those things are going to be set on fire. So with Gullyd3ck3l now, you can see he is getting more upgrades. He's just waiting for all those upgrades to come in, causing some havoc here at the back, knowing that every little bit of idle time he gets is going to secure him one step closer to qualifying for this event. Now, these javelin throwers, they do get a few victims, even though they will be paying with their lives. The camels trying to flank a little bit here. Those walls just not doing the work they need. That monk realizes, hey, I need to get out of here. We had grand theft relic happening as well. And it looks like Starflark just, he committed to this land army. And now finally thinking about the nest of bees, it feels a little bit late because these bad boys are also a little bit out of position here. The nest of bees does go down as quickly as it came out. We'll have to wait for the next one to do some damage, because remember that mobility I mentioned? We were talking about it when there were 2 camels. Now there are a few more, and they should be able to collapse on this. We see here, though, Gully wants to back off because he knows that his army is not together. There's a bunch of yellow blobs all around the map, but they're about to come together. And this is going to start becoming a lot better of a fight for Mr. Gully. Nest of Bees trying to get a good shot, just misses a little bit.
And, you know, the thing of it is now is Gullyd3ck3l has the crossbowing mass, right? Where Starflark, his front line is predominantly Palace Guard, Lancers, all these heavy armor units that the crossbowmen are going to be able to take down very quickly, along with the camels, too. Nesta B is going to be shooting over the wood line. We got a little bit of a body block, a little bit of a choke point over here to make sure that Nesta Bees ends up staying alive. A Wololo from Starflark on the western side of this front. That is a little bit too close for comfort. I was getting a little bit charged up there, and it looks like that monk was trying to also. But Gullyd3ck3l, there's way too many units. A good Nest of Bees shot in the back, but that choke point now, that front line got completely dissolved by Gullyd3ck3l just because of the amount of crossbowmen that were there. And Starflark says he wants no more of this one. Game 1, going to Gullyd3ck3l.
And honestly, that Nest of Bees did everything he could. He got some pretty juicy shots off in that last part of it. But imagine if that was 10 minutes earlier. The man needed his Nest of Bees, and he just did not have it in those critical fights when he had the chance of getting ahead here. We thought this was going to be an easy win for China. But Gully, he held. He got to castle, and he let those free units do the talking. He oiled himself up real nice, and he slid all the way to victory.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the nested bees and how important they are. Obviously, they're clock towers, so they have a little bit more health as well. But you got to think about the Byzantine army. I mean, besides the camels that were there, they're predominantly all foot soldiers. So nested bees could have been very pivotal for him. But it was such a weird place for China because once the deer ran out from the professional scouts, he needed wood to do things like get his granary transition and do all that kind of stuff while continuing to make a food heavy army composition. So he might not have necessarily just had the wood to get all of those nested bees, and that could have been the reason why he didn't have them. It was just he needed more resources than he actually had. Right, Starflark did have that advantage kind of going into feudal age just because of that pro scouts, but it didn't end up translating. We're going to see if he can translate onto the scoreboard. Whammon, you like that one? Oh yeah, onto 4 lakes for game number 2. And we are going to be diving in just a couple seconds. We're getting wet again, Whammon, on 4 lakes with some dock action and Japanese. How about it?
Now, the question is, are these Shinobis going to be a little bit more powerful than they were in the previous showing? Because honestly, I'm a little bit worried for the Shinobi action against the Abbasid military wing. Oh, we know the military wing. We know that ram that gets plopped down, but I don't even think they need that. With the docks costing half the price, we should be seeing Abbasid on water taking what's theirs. So there's 2 choices. Let's go see what he goes for, ladies and gentlemen. So with Abbasid, as I was mentioning earlier, sometimes people on Abbasid, they don't go for that early dock. They just try to get to feudal as quickly as possible to try and shut down the opponent's dock. But when you are on a map with many, many lakes, 4 of them, in fact, you are going to go and try to dominate at least one of them. So Gullyd here, doing what Japanese does best, docking as well, getting them cheap fishing ships, and hopefully making some deep shinobi plays that he needs.
Yeah, like if it was something like Canal that we saw in the previous tournament, or Canal as you'd like to call it, you could definitely go for some military wing, make a ram really quickly, something like that, because there's only one body of water. Now that you have 4, it becomes a little bit difficult because if you stop one dock from happening, there might be one on the opposite side. So did you really stop their food economy entirely? Not so much, right? So we're going to see what Starflark ends up wanting to do with the Abbasid dynasty, but there's a reason why both of these civs are picked on this map. We talked about the Japanese just a little bit in terms of their fishing boats and them costing 45 wood, but Abbasid getting those docks, like you said, at half price, 75 wood to do that. So again, this is that little bit of tempo, and especially if you're going to make multiple docks, that's that little bit of tempo that can really go into your favor, because it's important to not only get that fishing economy completed, or at least being active. You're gonna be having to go to feudal age as quickly as possible, because if you're gonna want to contest the dock, if you're gonna want to contest on land, you got to make sure you have the units to do it. So getting feudal age and that early tempo stuff from the wood economy ends up becoming pretty huge.
Now, I can imagine as Gullyd, you are asking yourself, what am I going to be dealing with Abbasid's initial push? When they get that military wing, it becomes so tricky to make the right decision. Like, hey, do I just go sabotage dock? Do I go for another bit of water? Or am I forced to make units? And I think this is probably why Abbasid is such a strong pick on water and hybrid maps, because you need to make a little bit on land to be able to deal with them. And as Vodka has pointed out now for us twice, Abbasid, they've got a lot of sheep, so even if they needed to go out on the map, that wouldn't be a worry at all. He has the food at home. So he will be able to do a little bit of that land push that you would imagine if you are going to be letting a little bit of the water pressure go down. So we are going to be... Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Tim.
And let's not forget, Wayman, I'm just going to piggyback on your point. Let's not forget, both of these civs are technically berry civs, too. So, it definitely, if your fishing gets compromised, you have an ability to get the berries, you have an ability to get the sheep. But because there's water on this map, and why water is so important, why everyone says when you play this game, when you win water, you win the game, is because your ability to pull villagers off of those food resources to get your other ones stronger. So even though, yeah, there's sheep there, yeah, there's berries there, but you really don't want to get them if you don't have to. You want to have villagers on wood, and you want to have them on gold, So you have the ability to get that economy, get to Castle Age very, very quickly. Now, Starflark does go with the military wing, those 2 spearmen, those 2 archers, where Gullyd3ck3l is going for the Coca Township and Whammon. I actually really like this military wing approach, just because of getting those 2 archers immediately. You don't have to build an archery range. You don't have to spend the wood on it. It means that you have that counter to the shinobi if you're microing well enough.
Now, the problem is Japan is versatile. They get to make a different decision here. We saw this the last game as well. It looked like we were going to get some shenanigans on water, but you can choose to stay and go for castle. So the problem that makes this less easy is Abbasid has a response to fast castle. They do have that ability to have those extra units pretty early on. So it does make that fast castle a little bit trickier to just pull out of the hat, because there are units and they're free. So they don't just need to go for your dock. They could also just go straight for your base and try to idle those resources coming in. And I didn't even consider this early on. I was like, okay, so he's getting the military wing. He's going to go obviously and pressure dock, but he could just go straight for that forward gold that is already on that side. Now, he does already have the pop space as well, making sure that those units can pop out in 24 seconds. We see double broadaxe coming from Gullyd3ck3l, which means he knows. He knows that we can get that pressure from Abbasid. He is going to play a little bit in feudal before making any irresponsible decisions.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing a pivotal moment for the military wing. It's 1:45 whether you like it or not. And Gullyd3ck3l going to be able to put 6 on that Coca Township means you get up pretty quickly. Both of them trying to go for a little bit of cheek in here, with a dock from Starflark on the north side being completed. Gullyd3ck3l going to be going with the southern pond, putting a dock. And the thing of it is, because Starflark spaced out his fishing boats a little bit, he needs to make sure he's watching the mini-map. If he sees that dock go up, then he'll be able to kind of do something about it. Assuming he sees it. I don't know if we have any military units going over there, and hopefully he does. But there's only a villager. There is a Dow, so he is prepared for it. We'll see if that dock goes up in the amount of time. But this is really pivotal, because Gullyd3ck3l's fishing economy is starting to get a little compromised, right? You got a dock up there. It might prove to be beneficial to you. Let's see if the RNG gods are in his favor. If that dock gets completed, he starts pushing up just a little bit. And that could have been a problem. One villager going down before the Japanese, while Starflark now can focus on that north pond.
Now, villager for villager, at least, got traded, as we see here. Now, that is a little bit of a delay here for Mr. Gully as well, because now Gully needs to make that ram, which is a lot of wood. It means you don't get to make some extra ship or an extra dock there, get that pressure on water, but you do just get to shut one down. Now, the ram is made to the north side, but he's already won the water, and Starflark has accepted it. Now, what worries me here is that Starflark is floating 240 gold. And you know how I talked about Fast Castle Japan earlier? And them being able to pull that out of the hat? Apparently, Abbasid could think about a similar play here. We do see a shinobi, though. He's looking a little bit spicy. Villagers panicking right now. Instead of finishing the tower, he loses one of them. So, very big pickup here from these shinobis. And the jig is up. He saw exactly what's cooking. When you get that shinobi, you see the tower on the gold, you know it's going to be fast castle. And he's going to need to do something about this.
Yeah, and I mean, even for fast castle, just getting a tower against a civilization that is pumping shinobi at you is obviously going to be beneficial, right? Because of those arrows doing a decent amount of damage. Now, Gullyd3ck3l goes with an archery range here as the Japanese, and he's going to be adding some Yumi, Ashigaru, and I know we talk about the Yumi's power, or lack thereof, I should say, just having 4 damage, dealing a normal output. But maybe if he gets enough of them, it might be enough to kind of take these down. He only needs a few archers to deal with the archers of the Abbasid dynasty, because those shinobi are not going to be there. They're not going to be able to help with those 2 archers there. Dock ends up going down. Gullyd3ck3l's going to need to have to replace that to get his food economy back. That dock from Starflark, I don't know if it's sabotage or burning. I think it is just burning. Demo ship coming in. That's big. Starflark, pay attention. Oh, my God. Get to that thing. Get to that thing. It's not going anywhere. Oh, my God. Wham it. It's going to explode on the shore. That could have been huge.
You can see dead Yumis all around as well. Starflark now, he is making more units, though. I mean, when you're seeing all those horsemen on the field, that is exactly the answer to those Yumis that you're hoping for. But that dock is still alive, just not for long. And another villager might actually pay the price. It depends if Gullyd sees this. He might not. Well, we see the Yumi Ashigaru doing amazing work at shutting down this, but at the same time, the scout is ready to take down the villager. The villager has paid the price, and he goes down. Rest in pieces.
Man, that villager, because of a scout doing 1 damage, that villager got killed from a butter knife. Maybe not put that on the gravestone once we end up burying that guy, but rather disappointing to get that dock up. Now demo ship comes in. Now he's paying attention. Boom! And that sprinkled ship ends up going down. Did I scare you in chat? Are you all paying attention? I hope so.
The problem is that demo ship just cost Gullyd3ck3l a lot. Because yes, you might think, oh, he just lost the ship. He lost control of that water. Because once he would have gotten that dock down, he would have been in such a good position to just take over every bit of that lake. And now, there's still a dock alive, and it is still going to be producing ships and making a little bit of trouble. Now, that ram definitely got its value. It's provided a lot of entertainment for us as well, and the shinobis are kept busy for just a little bit longer. Starflark now, we can see, pushing back, and there's no dock here for Mr. Gullyd to get those fishing ships to drop off. So even though the villager count looks pretty even, a lot of those are idle fishing ships. They just have nowhere to go.
And the thing is, there's a reason why this was so good. And Starflark now with no dock, still can't get a dock. Those fishing boats are collecting fish, and they're basically just going to sit in the boat for all eternity. This is really important because Gullyd3ck3l can't make a navy here. So his fishing finally ends up getting compromised. But the thing of it is, even though the timing wasn't, or the fishing economy wasn't compromised for a decent amount of time, because Gullyd3ck3l had to continue to pump resources out there, put docks out there, make shinobi, make a yumis, all that kind of stuff, the archery, it means it delayed you a little bit, and that fishing eco is still alive and relatively untouched for Starflark. So again, we're talking about winning the water, winning the game, and it looks like Starflark has a clear advantage on that because Gullyd3ck3l now starting to get that dock up and will be relatively safe. But now Gullyd3ck3l is going to try to do something. Try to stop Starflark's fishing economy from becoming so strong. Hopefully, with him going up to Castle Age, he gets a stable, gets some Mounted Samurai that could do some damage.
The problem with Mounted Samurai is they need to do a lot of damage right now. And yes, Japan did get out ahead a little bit earlier, but we don't see a Mounted Samurai in queue. This has been waging war. We didn't have that food economy for Gullyd. So Gullyd3ck3l right now, he's just hungry and he's desperately waiting to get the food delivered because he knows this might be the last load he gets for a while and he needs to make some Mounted Samurais and pretty quickly. Now, with Gullyd losing that lake, we saw the scores being pretty even there in villages with a 6 lead, but again, those were idle fishing ships. Starflark has been in the driver's seat for a while. He gets a wheelbarrow as well. He's in a pretty safe position. He chooses the economy side of things, but at the same time, we're seeing a knight, and you know exactly what a knight means. Alongside some camels, it is an answer to those samurais. So you don't just want to go for clean camels. You want to make sure that you do get that firepower. Oh, Shinobi's still doing some good work, though. Gullyd being pretty potent on these Shinobis. Pretty proud of this man. The horses, though, they're ready, and they're going to fight back, and the villagers making sure that they are going to get that wall up.
Yeah, and this is the kind of frustrating part against playing against the Abbasid dynasty, as Gullyd3ck3l is using Mounted Samurai because that's the power spike that the Japanese really rely on in Castle Age, right? But because the Abbasid dynasty is this anti-cavalry civilization, getting their camels, and they're going to be adding some horsemen and stuff with them also, it just means that these camels are going to end up really taking care of these Mounted Samurai. So that power spike that the Japanese really, really wanted, it's not going to be there anymore.
And he tries to get this bannerman out here to change the tide as well. And he might even be able to take this fight, but it is still a fight that is not as favorable as you need when you're this far behind economically. Now, these samurais are doing great, but keeping in mind, those units at the back are just being ignored, and they are doing pretty well at keeping those shields down. We do see those crossbows doing some pretty good damage here. They will go down, but those are very, very damaged horses. And Japan is not that great at healing up their units. We can see here those boys going down completely. Lancers now, Knights now joining the party. And Gullyd's army is in shambles because what Starflark has is the exact counter to what Gullyd is doubling down on. We see more mounted samurais and nothing else.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of the issue because you don't have that power spike with the mounted samurai, right? So what are you going to transition to a little bit later? Are you going to add an archery range and try to get a bunch of Yumi to take down these camel riders? Well, you're going to need a metric ton of those Yumi Ashigaru to actually do something. So he's going for an alternative and going for Onimusha because he sees the Lancers of the Abbasid Dynasty getting a little bit of bonus damage. There might be some value in going for Onibugisha as well, just because you can make quick work of those camel riders. They don't have any melee armor, or if they do, it's very minimal at best, so maybe having the ability to do that. But he definitely needs something other than those mounted samurai to do any kind of damage, because this is the best anti-knight composition that you could possibly get. And it's from the Abbasid Dynasty using those camel riders, some crossbowmen in the back as well. And you're going to see very quickly those mounted samurai are going to end up going down. They don't have any kind of bonus against those camels. There's a little bit of unease. Those samurai are getting scared off by those lovely, lovely lumps. And he's actually scared off into the ball game. He's leaving.
I did not expect that. I felt like, yes, you were behind. But there was also that aspect of, okay, my resources started running out a little bit. So the wood lines were getting further and further away from the base, causing you to move out further. And again, you're playing against a very mobile army. So you were going to have some trouble. We saw here with the economy going up and down, but keeping in mind, Gullyd was idle for a while. So the economy count might look pretty even, but this poor man was suffering once those ships went down. Let's go see the villages. You can just see when that spring-old ship started taking down hordes of poor little fishing ships just trying to bring back bacon or fish to the dock. That went down to a ram, unfortunately. Up and down, though. My gosh.
I mean, it just begs the question. When you're Japan going up against Abbasid, obviously you're not, too crazy about the matchup anyway. But it begs the question, why would you put the Arashira in the stable at all? You kind of expect that there's going to be some anti-cavalry composition coming out of Starflark, and especially because of his fishing economy being there, like you mentioned, Starflark had the food to get a lot of camel riders to do some damage that we saw, right? So is there an opportunity to maybe put the first Yoroshiru in an archery range, to put it in a barracks, to do something that's not cavalry related? Because for Japan, they do have infantry. They are technically this infantry civilization. Maybe you could have did that instead of the mounted samurai. But we are tied up going into game number 3. It is on Gorge, one of my favorite maps, Wayman. I don't know about you, but I love this map. And we are going to be seeing the Rus and the Delhi Sultanate going head-to-head. This is going to be a fun one.
The problem with Delhi is they're really in a good place right now. Problem with Rus, they're also in a pretty good place right now. But guys, the game's about to start. Are you ready for my favorite map? Because I'm an English player.
Oh my god, you had to throw the English in here. Let's get to the lobby because I don't want to hear about it anymore. We're going to go into game number 3 of this round of 32 qualifiers. Whoever wins this game is going to continue to move on. Starflark playing as the Rus, spawning in the northeastern section of the map, going with that hunting cabin start. Gullyd3ck3l will be his opponent on this pivotal game number 3 as the Delhi Sultanate spawning in the southwestern side as the color yellow. So, Wayman, this is a matchup that, honestly, I've been seeing on ladder a lot. These are two civs that, personally, I play a lot. So, you see Rus going up against Delhi. You see Delhi going up against Rus on both sides. To be honest, this really comes down to, again, we're going to talk about this, and this is going to be an overwhelming feature throughout the course of the games today, professional scouts. Rus loves professional scouts because of that bounty and the bounty change that they had. Delhi loves professional scouts because they love free things. And it's free.
Free. It's the best. So that's the problem here. When you have that scout advantage, considering you don't need a stable to make scouts as there is, you already get ahead a little bit and you're already ready to place your scouts everywhere. Now, something I heard about Roos recently, it's the scouts are not just scouting, they're not just waiting for professional scouts. Keeping in mind that when you have a big amount of them, they can actually burn stuff down. And that's why it's very important here for Mr. Gullyd to make sure that he doesn't build his buildings too far away, because these bad boys can actually do some damage and cause you to miss out on some of those upgrades. So a lot of people have been talking about the ability of Roos to actually put that early game pressure on anyone who is a little bit greedy. And I'm looking at you, Twitch chat, all of you chads here in the chat who do put that house just outside the range of the TC. Be careful, because Roos has something to say about it. And honestly, every civilization has something to say about it once they do get that professional scouts and they have a bunch of horses just running around, not doing much and wanting to burn stuff. Now, we do see the normal things coming out from Delhi. Upgrades, 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 because they're all for free, baby. Now, I'm excited to see if Starflark is going to go for another one of those bad boys pretty early on so that he can get the position right. We've been seeing the professional scouts on the opposite sides of the map. You want to yoink. The power of the yoink is very important. You need to be able to yoink the deer from your opponent's side. Dome of the Faith coming out now. Very standard here from Mr. Daly. And this is it for both of these players. They want to make it through, and this is match point.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to, I want to talk about yoinking a little bit, or the study of yoinkology. Having these professional scouts for the Roos, I think, is very important because they're going to be the first ones to get there. So for the Delhi, obviously, with the mill, you hit that professional scouts and it's free, which is great. But it takes a little bit of time because you're still using the Dome of the Faith to get those scholars to really speed up that production. So even though it's free, it's going to take a little bit longer. Does that mean Starflark could have the ability to do a little bit more yoinking than his opponent does? It goes to show, especially for how many deer you get as the Roos, you get that food, you get that bounty with that gold that could really help propel you into Castle Age. So we're going to see if there's going to be a yoinking ability now with the Delhi Sultanate to stop that yoinking. They're going to be going into a stable. They're going to be, how many times did I say yoink this one? To get a stable and go into some Ghazi Raiders because they have the speed. Right? They have the speed to chase down those scouts, whether they have a deer carcass or otherwise, and hopefully stop that from happening.
Now, speaking about yoink, you know, we care about the yoink. It's great. We love the fact that we're going to be getting some yoinking around the map. But I want you guys to notice the precision of Starflark there. When he actually re-rallied those villagers building the lumber camp, he had 4 on them because he wanted to get the tree chopped down in exactly the right amount of chops to just be able to sell the wood and, you know, get them upgrades. And that's exactly what the man is going to do. Professional scouts has been queued up, and Gullyd does not have professional scouts in queue.
Yeah, that wheelbarrow is just about getting created. Maybe it was a little late to getting that wheelbarrow actually click. But really quickly, if you can hover over Vodka, if you want to do me a favor, hover over the Pro Scouts on the top right part of your screen for Starflark. You can see the timing. That's there. He's got about 50 seconds. Now, click on the mill for the Delhi Sultanate when that Pro Scouts is going to get completed. That's first up. 3 minutes, 15 seconds. So there's that little bit of a window that gives an opportunity for Starflark to try to do something. And obviously with that hunting cabin, it means you don't have to stop your villager production to continuously pump out those scouts, and that's what he's going to be able to do. Now, obviously, Delhi does have the opportunity to get scouts out of the stable that are getting efficiently produced. So that has an opportunity once Pro Scouts gets completed that he's able to do that. But first, Ghazi hitting the battlefield, and now Starflark might have to make his own little bit of a change here. Does he want to go for a barracks? Does he want to add some spearmen? Does he want to add some knights maybe that are relatively expensive? So there's an opportunity for yoinking, but because of the defensive potential of the Ghazi Raider, maybe there isn't going to be too much. You can see it moving its way around the battlefield, trying to stop some of these deer from getting there. But because you have so many scouts, you can hit so many deer packs at once. And Starflark is doing that. There's the north one. There's the east one. He took one from the southwestern side as well. There's a scout moving its way over with that carcass. So those Ghazi Raiders, I get that they're mobile, and they are. They're super mobile, but you can't be everywhere at once.
And that scout going down is not just a scout going down. That is one less man to carry a deer carcass. So that's actually a really, really big pickup here from Starflark. And I feel like this is also why Rus does so well, because they can just have so much more because of those hunting cabins. But now Delhi, being in a pretty great position as a civilization, they have versatility. So with those Ghazi Raiders, they're definitely getting out on the map, causing this little bit of pressure around. They can produce them so much faster. But now there's no scout. There's the survival techniques. We're going to be seeing those deer pickups eventually, but he might not even need to because he's got so many units on the map, and he could actually do a little bit of damage and create a lot of pressure here. But with the spearman coming out, he's going to look for an answer himself. The problem is Delhi is pretty quick to respond to that. Usually Delhi can pump out archers equally as quickly. These Ghazis are protecting the deer, and I don't feel like Starflark got the value he needed, but we know what Rus does as a backup plan. They just get wood and they go to castle, and they're perfectly okay with that. But you do need a little bit of food here to just secure that. The spearmen now, though, amazing work by these boys, pushing these Ghazis back off of them, and the scout should be able to yoink one or two more of his own deer.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, you're able to get some of the enemy deer, you know, those safe deer packs, which is vastly important because Gullyd3ck3l has professional scouts as well. But now you've reached a time where, hey, maybe going to castle is a little bit more important than anything else that I'm doing. So he's going to be using the Golden Gate in order to do that, starting to sell some of that wood, some extra wood that he does get if he wants to. And he'll be able to, with the couple of deer carcasses that he got, end up going to castle. But on the flip side, Gullyd3ck3l, for the Rus, he was so focused on those deer packs and putting those military units on those deer packs to try to get the carcasses, he wasn't really worried about the sacred sites. And Delhi really splits the map up in so many different points of interest. So not only do you have those deer packs, which are points, but also the sacred sites. So they went to those deer packs, try to fight on the deer packs, while on the flip side, he was just getting all of the sacred sites. And now with 3 of them, and Sanctity, that sacred victory timer is ticking, but I would imagine that is not the win condition. He's going to be able to, with all of this economy, really flood the Rus.
Problem for Rus is as well, you need to keep that food production going. And it's so hard to do so when now Delhi is ready to start getting those deer on the map too. We see now 4 scouts from Gully. So he's going to start picking up a few. And even though he'll get less out of this, it doesn't mean that he's behind. He's very happy going out on the map and getting some berries while waiting for that upgrade. Now that there are knights on the map though, you don't want to be going too far out of your base. Starflark only getting 2 knights though, so he's not going to be that very heavy pressure that we usually see here. But Gully sneakily trying to sneak one of those deer away. The knights do have something to say about that, and they will stop this guy dead in his tracks. And the scout is ready for the pickup, but he doesn't want to risk his life just for a silly little deer.
Yeah, and I think it's very difficult when you're playing against the Delhi Sultanate and you're a Knight Civ like Starflark is, because some of this kind of stuff will happen. The Ghazi Raider, I mean, it doesn't have a decent amount of base damage, but it has an extra +2 to heavy. It's not necessarily the damage that it does, it's more so the mobility. The Knight's not going to be able to get away. You know, that Knight is only at 1.62 tiles per second, and those horsemen are usually, if they're not charging, if I remember correctly, 1.88. So you're going to be able to go and get them. And now you're facing a Delhi Sultanate, as 1.88 vodka makes me look so good in checking it out. Thank you. Now, Gully is going to have the ability as the Delhi to continuously flood units in feudal, and you see that. Military count 44 to 26. Don't get me wrong, 10 of them are scholars, but still, you have a little bit of a military advantage. And Delhi is a little bit better at going for this rock, paper, scissors composition of spears and archers and horsemen, a little bit better than the Rus are because of how expensive those knights are. There's only 2 or 3 of them, and he really doesn't have much to deal with some of the archers and the archer mass that is going on from Gullyd3ck3l. You know, obviously, Starflark can make his own archers, but Delhi's going to be able to continuously get people on wood. The wood economy is going to be there and continuously push out. Now, Starflark is hoarding resources, so he's going to try to get to castle, realizing he can't win this in feudal. But is this delaying the inevitable, Wayman? Is Gullyd3ck3l already have that much of an advantage?
Now, I'm hoping for Gully's sake that he is able to sustain this advantage that he has. I don't think it's over for Starflark, though. He is going to have a hard time getting back out of this, considering he needs to get gold for his upgrades still, and now this is a very heavy army to be facing. He hasn't even gone out on the gold. All of this has been passive, which is absolutely crazy. Getting that high trade house, very important though, because it does provide you a little bit of safe food. But considering that you need to put it on the side there of your little wood line, you're going to be able to be harassed, especially by that sheer amount of Ghazis. And you just don't have the response to this just yet. Gullyd3ck3l will follow suit into castle pretty soon too. As we can see, he's floating some resources here. Keeping in mind that when he hits castle, they do take a while to get going though. So Delhi upgrades take a much longer time. So you do have feudal units against castle units in most cases, but with the amount of gold that Starflark has, that's not going to be the biggest worry, because he's just going to be able to get 1 or 2 upgrades pretty early on, and these Ghazis are going to do okay against these knights for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, for how many knights there are, and obviously with the charge effect, it's becoming a little difficult, but the only thing he's doing, just because of the Ghazi mobility, is to make sure he continues to keep those sacred sites, and that's what he's doing. You know, he's getting 375 gold per minute, and basically with nobody on gold because of those sacred sites. So he's going to be going up with the House of Learning. He does have a lot of scholars, and my God, women, do they have so many books. Get them into the House of Learning. They're going to be able to get some of those unique technologies. Now that Starflark is Castle Age, he has a little unique technologies up his sleeve as well, and going to be going into, with Castle Age, men-at-arms. Now, as a Rus being a cavalry civilization, you have the opportunity to make things like knights and horse archers and boyars fortitude. Going for things like men-at-arms might not be what you want to do, but for Starflark, he kind of feels like he has to.
Well, the thing about men-at-arms is they're unexpected, and with Starflark being a little bit behind here, he might need to have an element of surprise, especially when this age up comes through. Oh, he's trying to take the fight right now, and this is probably the best time he has to take this fight, because as those upgrades are ticking, they're going to be better and better for Gullyd, because they're free, which is my favorite type of prize. If something is free, it's the best. So getting all these little pickups is exactly what he needs to stay in this, and he is getting wheelbarrow now. Starflark, he's thinking of these upgrades among all the beautiful military ones, but focus firing those spearmen really well. We see the Delhi upgrades ticking with all those scholars behind. He definitely is not going to wait too long for them to kick in. The spearmen, though, they need to be careful because they're providing that layer of protection right now, and if he loses them to those millions of archers on Delhi's side, he's going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, but those archers are providing good firepower for Starflark. As you can see, the spearmen, not all of them ended up going down, and they're that DPS that you really need against those Ghazis. Ghazis end up going down. There's still a couple knights in here. I think this is overall a pretty good win for Starflark, and it goes to show how important it is to get the veteran archer upgrade. Having that ability, take it down those spearmen rather quickly, you're going to be able to take down some of those villagers. We had a little bit of a Wololo experimentation going on, a double Wololo, but no units ended up getting hit in the crossfire. Now Gullyd3ck3l starting to use some Castle Age units. He's going to be able to try to get some Lancers out there. Some men-at-arms might be able to tank a little bit as well, as Starflark is bolstering up some of his own. Doesn't really have the Spearmen or anything to kind of deal with those Lancers of the Delhi side, but he's doing a really good job of taking down a lot of units for Gullyd. We all know Delhi being that snowball civilization. You want to take one really good fight and snowball afterward. And I didn't see that pivotal fight from Gullyd3ck3l this time around.
Gullyd definitely thinking that he was going to be able to take this fight without those upgrades being ticked off completely. We saw that they were so close, but the fight took place just before, and Starflark knew this. Playing against Delhi, you know you have this very sweet spot of timing because of that small delay. And honestly, I think he's gotten that advantage quite well now. But remember what we talked about earlier, when people get professional scouts, they sometimes forget about the food spike that happens after. So with some 1,000 wood, though, he's probably going to be able to farm transition pretty well, and he's doing exactly that behind this. But those things need to get up, and they need to start pumping, because the food is not looking too great on either side. We have 1,000 per minute, but this army, Starflark in the driver's seat right now. These archers running at the front, they're ready to pick things off. These lancers are trying their best, and they're doing pretty well, but he needs to be careful. Gullyd cannot overextend here, but the same goes for Starflark. He's only got archers here at front. paired with the crossbows that are following suit, and they are getting closer. Those crossbows are ready for those lances, and they're going to be able to do quite good damage, especially with those upgrades on their side.
Yeah, the crossbowmen were kind of what Starflark needed there, especially with the men-at-arms that are there too. That's going to make Gullyd3ck3l back up. And you know what? It's so funny because he had like 4 or 5 crossbowmen, and that was pretty much all you needed to take those down, because he really didn't have anything to deal with those lancers. But now with those crossbowmen going to be able to do some damage against those men-at-arms. Gullyd3ck3l has his own form of crossbowman that will end up taking some down as well. So some skirmishes in the middle of this, but there's no real clear-cut winner right now. Starflark going with a different army composition. He's adding some crossbowmen, adding some men-at-arms, but I see Whammon. It's my favorite unit. 3 horse archers on the battlefield, and more coming up. With a men-at-arms and crossbowman kind of army composition, the horse archers are such a good pick.
The horse archers just provide that extra level of mobility that you need when you know the Delhi is out on the map picking berries. These bad boys are going to be mobile. They're going to be able to get there. And we see those first 3 horse archers just firing down here. He says, that is my relic. And that bad boy will take him home to provide that extra bit of gold that Roos loves to get. Now, Starflark needs to be very careful here because he could be caught out. And this army is a little bit out of position right now with these archers. Yeah, there are a few archers between these. Target firing on top of those crossbows. We do see Starflark screaming to the skies, ensuring that these units need to back off. But keeping in mind, that is a horse, so he might be able to run away, even with the relic in hand. And Gullyd does not have the units to actually catch up to that. But now the horse archers are in the base. They're just not doing any damage just yet, Tim. I'm really sorry. Their legacy has not lived up to what you've needed from them. Oh, no.
But you know what? That's the thing, Wayman. Just get in there and cause some chaos. You know, and that's what horse archers are really good at. As you can see, Delhi, there's no walls. There's no outposts. There's nothing that's really going to stop these villagers from getting raided to death. So if he has... Well, that's a... Okay. That's a pretty big build. Yeah.
Big one.
Yeah, it's a pretty juicy one. That outpost, that keep is going to be able to stop you from getting that. But you're exactly right. Because those deer end up getting taken away and they end up getting harvested, just means you got to go out now, and it delays getting those outside food resources. So Starflark is going to be able to get that boar, which is going to be beneficial. Gullyd3ck3l is going to be continuing to try to get some of these berries, and this food economy becomes very, very important for both of them to keep up with, because that army compositions out of both players, crossbowmen, men-at-arms, horse archers, horsemen, crossbowmen, they cost a lot of food, so that's going to be really pivotal. Whoever is going to be able to take down some of these outside food resources, maybe stop a farm transition, or somebody starts one a little early, could really turn the tide. But now we're seeing a battle up here with some of these spearmen trying to make up the front line with men-at-arms. Too many crossbowmen. Those men-at-arms to take down, but we got some horsemen on the western side, going to be able to get some of that bonus damage in on the crossbowmen. Horse archers are going to be helpful as well. Saint's Blessing on a decent amount of those units. And then people are talking about, you know, this is a good matchup for Delhi, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, Gullyd3ck3l's army gets absolutely shredded with that horseman change from Starflark. Real heads-up play. Military count ends up being somewhat the same in the 30s, but you got to remember, Gully has 7 scholars that are making up on that military count. So these archers, these crossbowmen are going to end up getting cleaned up. Gullyd3ck3l does have 3 sacred sites, but I don't think that's going to last for a very long time.
Exactly. The problem is Delhi needs that control, but at the same time, he's going to be able to sit back and get those keeps going, get extra villages if he's far behind. But to do that, you do need to cause a little bit of pressure. And right now, the units I'm seeing in Delhi's army is not the units that cause pressure. They're units that are reactionary. And, ooh, except for that elephant. Hello there, sir. He wants to bring the elephants to the party, I say. But these horse archers didn't really get their damage done at all. They looked quite fancy, I must say. But they didn't do too much just yet. I feel like Starflark made them thinking about raiding, but he didn't do that much as he wanted. Oh, and at the front here, these guys sneak by while the horse archers are distracting, and I'm completely wrong. More villagers getting taken down, and honestly, it looks like Starflark is going to the next round.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing a good job putting pressure over and over again, right? And maybe he's trying to get that forward keep. I'm not sure if that's a deli keep or a Roos keep. It looks like a deli one, so we'll see if he's going to be able to do it. Horse archers are on both sides, going to be able to try to pick off some of these spearmen. Starflark making basically a change to all horsemen because of how many crossbowmen that Gullyd3ck3l ended up making. He's continuing to make at this point. There's enough archers and crossbowmen to take down the spears. Crossbowmen are going to get cleaned up again. We're seeing Whammon for the Delhi Sultanate. This snowball is not materializing. We're just seeing patches of snow on the ground and nothing to really make an avalanche. Military count 50 to 20, and I think he's going to be dealing with his own avalanche pretty soon. Because this Roos player, not only are they going to be able to deal with a lot of these units, but they can make siege relatively well because of their wood economy and able to get a keep. This tower elephant is going to try to have something to say about it. Those horsemen get a little bit of a bonus damage along with those spearmen. He tried to heal them up, but no amount of prayers is going to keep that Dumbo alive. We'll make sure we'll harvest that ivory later. And a lot of panic. Wololo is coming out on the southern side for Gullyd3ck3l, trying to make sure that he's pretty safe. And all these villagers are going down because of this keep too. I don't think this is going to go up, Whammon.
Gully just a little bit too greedy with some of these keep placements, and at the same time, just not able to provide that pressure onto Starflark. I mean, when you're Rus with professional scouts, the keep doesn't go up, unfortunately for us, but with professional scouts and the farm transition under the TC, it's so hard to shut this down. You also have the Golden Gate, so rebalance that economy as much as you need. Free food as well. And even though Gully looked like he was in charge for a while, Starflark and his ability to cause pressure everywhere definitely paid off. But Gully is not ready to let this one go yet. We can see here he's putting that keep down on the farms. And at the same time, Starflark says, let me go show you what a ram can do. And he's probably going to target that keep.
The thing is the Delhi Sultanate are notoriously cockroachy. And the reason why is because you get all of those keeps going. He has village fortresses that are completed. So yes, he's down in the economic count by 20. But getting a lot of those keeps up, making sure that his food economy is safe with his farms that he's transitioning into, while getting those keeps, it just means you're going to be able to at least stop the bleeding when it comes to this villager count. Now, Starflark did add a second town center, which is going to be very beneficial to him. But now, because of that wood economy, he's going to start to make a lot of rams, a little bit of a raid before that keep goes up. That keep is going to be good defense, but if it's a blueprint, probably not so much. And a couple more villagers end up going down. Economic count 76 to 48 and continuing to change. It looks like he's trying to take a villager down from that keep. Not going to be as beneficial. I think the keep are going to take a lot of those down. But because of those rams and that push going on in the northwestern side, Whammon, I don't think that keep is long for that world.
The top keep definitely not going to have the same pressure he needs. We see the villagers getting inside, trying to focus fire a few of these units down, hitting at it. That is 17 villagers idle right now. We have 8 in the other keep as well. I think Gully a little bit overwhelmed. He knows this is his last hurrah. He's trying to get as much damage done here. Starflark all the way in China for gold. Seeing Mr. Gully as well, desperately clawing away at gold. The resources do not lie. We have nothing from Gully, and we have everything from Starflark. Sacred Side victory now in the hands of Rus. A little bit of a destruction, if I may say. And those elephants, they need to shoot rockets if they want to make sure that Gully stays in this game. Those villagers are doing their best firing from the TC. The rams, though, a little bit scary. And let's see if that keep will last another few seconds before the villagers start to repair it. The boys are doing their best. The elephants trying to stop these rams as well. But there's so many crossbows firing back at them. The keep, he had his story, but that is it. Gully still not ready to tap out, trying to let the awkward fire of the TC help with the elephants alongside scholars, praying for that poor elephant, more arriving, lots of prayers, apparently the answer to keeping that elephant alive. That HP is regenning, and it reminds me back at Season 2 when we had herbal medicine and a lot of complaints at it.
Yeah, I remember the herbal medicine days too, and that elephant just seems rather invulnerable, invincible, just because of all of the prayers. But the scholars end up getting targeted to take down. The horsemen are essentially just being an MVP here because there's a big range mass by Gullyd3ck3l, but those archers and crossbowmen aren't going to do too much. Those horsemen get bonus damage, and down goes Dumbo. There's nothing left Those elephants are so expensive. It's very difficult to mass them up, especially when you have to get something to support them, and support them he does not do. Game number 3, and this wild series is going to Starflark as the Roos. What a great series this was, Wayman.
Honestly, absolutely fantastic seeing these two battle it out. Gullyd definitely showed that he knows how to put a little bit of late game pressure in the other games too, and multitask. And I think after the last performance of Gullyd in the tournament, he needed that win that he got, and he did well at it. Starflark, though, just a little bit too strong to take down. We can see here the villagers just going down and down from Mr. Gullyd to all those raids. And unfortunately, Gullyd just not strong enough to take down. I think Starflark is from Chile. He's going to have a chill going down his spine after this, because Starflark, absolute star in this last game. Okay, I need to stop. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you just
I'm
hit
done.
you hit back to back like that.
Oh.
Jesus. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. How am I supposed to crawl myself out of this hole? No, but with this one, Starflark obviously will be going to the round of 16.